Welcome to Talking Halo. This is Derek Ciapola with my co-host, my partners in crime, Jared Timms and Nate Green. I gotta ask right away, Jared, you're making things a little uncomfortable for me. It's not a safe space because you're wearing this ball cap, with this giant M on it, and it looks like Michigan. What is going on? Is that a Michigan hat?
No, it's not a Michigan hat. I promise. High
All
school,
right.
high school hat, not a Michigan.
I can't do this with a Michigan dude. I mean, like, so I'm glad you made this a safe space again. All right. So today, it's all about the bullpen. First things first, Nate, how you doing, man?
Doing all right. How about you, Derek?
Oh,
Good to see
living.
you again.
Sorry I missed Tuesday,
All
but
good.
school year. Can I tell you?
Yes, of course.
Jared, how you doing?
Baseball season, baseball, everything. It's awesome. I'm liking it right now. It's a lot of fun. A lot of stuff to talk about.
I'm getting anxious. I'm getting that buzz, and even though we've talked about the various levels of expectations for the team this year, it's still baseball, and it's almost back. So before you know it, we'll be cranky again, maybe. But at least we talking baseball.
Nate's already
Okay,
cranky.
who's cranky?
Nate's
Me?
always cranky. No, I said Nate. You're not
Cranky
cranky.
Nate? He's
Nate's
like Grumpy from the Seven Dwarfs. Man. Just
Angels do it to me sometimes
Sure.
too. That's okay.
Sure.
all right. So, okay, we have Ben Joyce, Kevin Jansen. We know they're kind of penciled in right now, the back end of the bullpen, and now I get to fill 5 to 7 more spots. 5 to 7. So I guess the question for you guys, I'm going to start Nate because I'm in the mood for some Nate unhappiness, for Nate griping. We're going to start with you. How do you fill this bullpen in?
Of course, of course. I think Zephyrin is going to be in there as well, just automatically. I think what he did last year kind of gives him a shot. Like he's penciled in pretty much. He would have to have an atrocious spring or get hurt. But so I think there's three right there. You're looking at five more, and we've talked about there's four, five, six lefties that could make this thing. I don't think all of them make it. There's probably realistically you probably take two, maybe they take three, but I no more than three. I personally I think it's two. So now you're looking at what, couple righties. Yeah, so you're looking at about three righties that still need to make this thing. It's definitely going to be an interesting bullpen. There's a lot of guys that haven't had a lot of time in the major leagues. You've got a lot of guys that have just, I mean, Hans Kraus was pretty good last year for them when he got an opportunity. And then you have guys like Quijada and Burke who kind of are hit and miss. And then you got my boy Jose Suarez who's competing for a spot. I think sneaky. You're looking at a starter to win a job out of here as well. I think Jared, last time you mentioned Kahanowitz could be in the pen if things don't go his way as a starter. I think maybe Silseth could be a guy that pitches out of the pen. You have Bachman, who we'll talk a little bit about here later, but yeah, it's spring training is very, very key for a lot of guys right now. And I would not be shocked. I know Perry had kind of talked about this that like, hey, we want to do things like we did, when I first got here and pick up a guy at the end of spring training when somebody gets cut and they sign for major league minimum basically. So I think you've got to be on the lookout for what are some older veteran right-handers that are getting cut here at the end of February, early March, that could make this Angels roster, like the Steve Cishek or Tony Watson. Tony Watson's left-handed, but you get my point. So I think that's what we're going to be looking for is one more veteran piece to get here because Stevenson's not going to be ready until at least July. So it would be nice to get one more veteran who's kind of been here, done that.
Jared, when you're looking at that back part, 5 to 7 guys, yeah, your
Yeah.
shoes that are set. You mentioned Nate Green. You mentioned a possible seventh guy. How are you lining up this bullpen, Jared?
Yeah, and first and foremost, you never know with a bullpen. Like we're talking about a lot of these guys, and a lot of them don't have a lot of major league experience. A lot of them, some of them do have major league experience and are all stars in the past. That's just how volatile a bullpen can be. Like this bullpen could be one of the best bullpens in baseball. I know it doesn't look like that. We're not penciling in them as one of the best bullpens in baseball, but you just never know how good a bullpen can be. It's going to also depend on, we say this every single year, it's going to depend on the starters too, and see how deep they can get into games and things like that. Because I mean, it feels like every single year, the first week we get into it, and it's like, man, these starters aren't going very deep, and you're starting to use this bullpen quite a bit. So we'll see how bullpen management goes. We'll see how starting pitching management goes. But you never know with how volatile the bullpen is. Yeah, I pencil in Jansen. I pencil in Joyce. I'm penciling in Brock Burke as well. Already, I think that he's got one of the lefty spots. Nate, I don't disagree with you on Hans Kraus either, especially with the way this bullpen is shaping out. They need more righties, and he's a righty. If he was a lefty, I'd be kind of on the fence with him. The lefty mix does become very, very interesting because I'm going to pencil in Brock Burke, and then it's between Garrett McDaniels, who is a Rule 5 draft pick from the Dodgers, he's already pitched well. And you look at him and he's got the stuff to do it as well. Like I'm close to penciling in Garrett McDaniels unless he gets hurt or unless something weird happens. But just from the stuff and just from the eye test alone, McDaniels fits the part for me. And I would only keep two lefties in that mix, maybe a third one, and it would be Quijada. So Angels fans, this might be the time where you get Jose Suarez DFA'd again. I don't know, but like
He's got to make the roster. It's not a real opening day roster unless he's on there.
I
Oh
start
gosh.
okay. I start wondering with Jose. It's just a side note. I start wondering with Jose Suarez. Like I get he was a top 100 prospect at one time. He's had
Or
some
some.
he's had some decent years, out of the bullpen and things like that. But I mean, what has he done to continue to get jobs? Like, or what happened? Like I don't know. I'm not
I'll
gonna.
give you an answer on
It's
that. I'll
weird.
give you an answer on that.
What has he done?
I mean, well, it's not what he's done, it's what he does. He'll go out there and he'll throw you these, 2, 3 game stretches where they're awful. He's just and you're like, oh my gosh, why is he here?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, they'll throw him out there 4 or 5 innings and he'll look great. And they'll think, okay, hey, maybe there's a shot for him. Maybe there's a shot that he'll finally get together. And then he'll go out there and throw 2 more clunkers. I mean, but every once in a while, Suarez will show you he's got something and reel you back in. And they don't want to cut that guy, but then he'll do what he does.
I
At
mean
some
more.
point, you gotta let him go.
I mean more. What does he know about the Angels that he can't get cut?
Oh, so that kind of
That
thing.
type of thing.
I'm just talking. I mean,
I,
my mind wasn't even going
I
there
don't
at
know
all,
anything.
man. I
I
don't
don't.
know
I
what
don't.
you.
I don't know anything. All right. I don't know anything. But I'm just saying, like, hey, he was good friends with Shohei. He's been in this organization for a long time. I wonder
Doing the
what's
same thing
going
over and
on.
over again.
Yeah.
Looking good for one outing and crappy for 3 or 4.
Besides the point, by the way. Sorry, I wanted to throw that in there about Jose Suarez. But Angels fans, yeah, you can kind of start getting excited. Like for me, he's the fourth lefty in this mix, and he might not even be the fourth lefty in this mix. To be honest, like I might pick a guy like Sammy Natera Jr. over him. But I'm penciling in those four guys: Jansen, Joyce, Burke, and McDaniels right now. Those are my four guys that I'm building around. If you want to pencil in Kraus, that's totally fine. But then you look at guys.
Zephyrin.
Oh, Zephyrin as well. That's
That
fine.
that's who I really like penciled in.
That's
I
fine.
think Kraus is still a question mark. I think he's got
That's
the
fine.
inside edge on the job because he's right-handed, but I think Zephyrin is in.
But then you start looking at it, and it's like Jake Dashwood, lefty, Quijada, lefty. Michael Peterson maybe makes the team, a hard throwing righty. That might be a guy. But then I look at the non-roster invites, and I like those a lot more than some of the guys on the 40 man right now. Like I'm a huge fan of Chris Cortez. I know has been off and
Mhm.
on. I'm a huge fan of Chris Cortez. Michael Darrell Hicks, he was on the show. Great,
Mhm.
great person. I think he fits the mold. He in the Angels bullpen. Jose Fermin has looked unbelievable this spring. And he picked up a lot of steam for sure. Cam Minacci, definitely deserves a job. Sammy Natera, I know he's a lefty, but he deserves definitely to be somewhere as well. And then you look at the starting rotation, and I haven't mentioned Sam Bachman yet, who we'll talk about in a second. I know he's hurt. Samuel Aldegari, I know is a lefty, but I mean, he's pitching the major leagues and probably should. Caden Dana, are you going to start him at the major league level? There's already four starters probably penciled in. Reed Detmers, are you going to start him at the major leagues level? Jack Hanowitz. I mean, people are going to hate me when I say I think Jack Hanowitz should start in Double A or Triple A, but I mean that's kind of how deep this Angels rotation is. And then you got Maderos, Silseth. I mean, it's deep with a lot of interesting pieces. It's not deep with a lot of guys that I think are going to make a huge impact this year, but definitely could when you talk about the youth
Yeah.
for sure. And also, you just don't know how bullpens are volatile. I mean, you could put Jack Hanowitz in the bullpen and he could be lights out. Like it's just kind of how a bullpen works. It's hard to find a guy this is why there's not very many relievers in the Hall of Fame because it's hard to find a guy like Kenley Jansen who is great year in and year out. You get guys like Brock Burke that, are all-stars 1 year and then all of a sudden we'll get DFA'd. Like it happens. So, and I do agree with you, Nate. And I'm almost done with my right here. I do agree with you. I think that there's going to be some guys that are going to be let go in camp that they probably look at picking up as well.
Just one.
Yeah,
I don't know who
one
it's going to
righty,
be, but there'll just be one righty. He signs
one
for
righty.
about major league minimum. Maybe he gets a
Mhm.
mill, and that's it.
Yep.
Now, Jared, I just want to quickly get this here. Who do you have pencil for long relief? I heard Nate mention his thoughts here. What are your thoughts on long relief?
I mean, you either don't have a long relief guy, or, which I think you do, it's got to be somebody like Jack Hanowitz or Jose Suarez.
I
Suarez has
think
been
Jose Suarez gets it.
Suarez has been good in that role. He really has. I'd prefer to see Kahanowitz. I prefer to not see Jose Suarez anymore, just because I'm over the experiment. Like I'm not somebody that gets over experiments very quickly. I'm like, there's stuff there. For me, I watch Jose Suarez and I kind of like just scratch my head a little bit. Like, it's somebody that gets outs and I understand it, but the stuff just isn't very good. I weird. Like I'm not one of those guys that says like I don't understand things. I don't understand Jose Suarez, and how he still has a job with the Angels. Or, it's crazy to me.
He knows where the bodies are buried, apparently.
That's what I was meaning right there.
I know, I
There
know.
you
I mean,
go.
I'm
You know
picking up
something. You
what
must
you're
know
putting down. A
something.
little slow on the uptake, but I got it. All right. So other things to talk about. Sam Bachman, since we're with pitching, Sam Bachman hurt. Not sure on all the details just yet, but there's some concerns there, or are there? Going to Nate. What's your thoughts on Sam Bachman right now?
Yeah, always concerned when you see a pitcher being shut down this early in spring. He has had some injury history with the back, and he's just had trouble staying healthy. But he's a guy that we didn't even really mention too much in the bullpen. He could be a guy that could be like a Zephyrin who can come in the seventh inning and get a job done if he's healthy. But the biggest question mark around him is health, and um, I think sooner rather than later, you might start to see him become a reliever just because of all the injury history. It might just be a little bit better for him to just be a reliever and pitch here and pitch there and do a good job. So I think he could be a really, really good pitcher for the Angels, especially out of the bullpen. But yeah, the injury history is just crazy for him.
Sure.
Yeah, just talking with somebody close to the situation. He looked good this spring. And I know Sam's annoyed at all of this and just wants to be out on the field. It doesn't seem too concerning. I'm not going to mention anything other than that, but it doesn't seem all that concerning. Seems like they're pretty precautionary, especially early in the season, with such a big arm that they've invested a lot of money into already. A first round pick, someone who we've seen flashes of being a very, very good pitcher, not just at the major league level, but I mean, not just in the minor league level, but at the major league level as well. We saw him be very, very good in the back of a bullpen. And, if that's where he needs to be, to stay healthy, then absolutely. Let's do that because I mean, if you're penciling in Ben Joyce, Chris Cortez, and Sam Bachman in the back of a bullpen, that's a pretty dang good, three to build around. And then, like I said, you got quite a few other guys. I know I mentioned how volatile a bullpen is, but to build around those three guys who I want to probably guess are all under 25 years old, it's kind of fun.
It's about fun and even some youth with the Angels. Do we even know that was there? Apparently there is.
Weird how that works.
Well, it does work. Some draft picks. I remember a draft not too long ago was all pitchers, and we know now we're seeing the fruit of it. Zack Neto throwing, but probably won't be ready for opening day. This conversation's been ongoing. What's the feel around Zack Neto, Jared?
I think Ron Washington came out today and said he's not going to be ready for opening day. Definitely stinks. Definitely sucks. I think a lot of people felt this coming on. They have the depth to be okay for a couple of weeks. I mean, Tim, man, I said to be okay, Nate. You don't need to give any weird faces. I said to be okay. I said to be okay. I didn't say they're going to be a playoff team early. I said they're going to be
Sure.
okay early. Kevin Newman can field a ground ball at shortstop. It's not like center field where if Mickey Moniak gets hurt, it's like, well, Nelson Rada is the guy in center field, which we'll talk about here in
Joe
the next
Adele.
couple of weeks. I People called me crazy for saying Joe Adell's not a center fielder, and I'm not there yet with it. He can just show a lot more in center field. But back to Zack Neto, the Angels can be competent at shortstop for a couple of weeks without Neto, which it sounds like that's all it's going to be. Is hopefully a couple of weeks of
Mhm.
Kevin Newman and maybe Tim Anderson or Luis Renifo or something along the lines of that. I know it's not beautiful by any means, but you can at least get by with major league players, and you're not having to call up a short Denzer Guzman, who's looked good this spring, but you don't have to call up a guy like Denzer Guzman, who you're, probably going to hit 120 with at the major league level and mess with a roster spot and things like that. So
Just a quick question: should we be getting nervous at all concerning Zack Neto? I mean, he's had his fair share of injuries his first couple years up. Should there be any concern at all,
uh,
Nate?
oh, go ahead, Nate. That's,
The one good thing about it is it's been different injuries every single time. Like it was the back, it was the elbow. Like it hasn't been the same thing. So that is a little bit of good news when it comes to that. Like if it's a lingering thing where it's the back every year, like for Bachman, it's been the back every single year for the most part until this year with the elbow. But for the most part, it's been the back, and that's where the concern comes in, where it's like, hey, it's the same type of thing every time. Um, but with Neto, it's a little bit different. He's young. He plays the game hard. You're going to get banged up when you play the game like he does. So I'm not too worried about it. Wasn't real shocked when I heard that he was probably going to miss the first month of the season. Um, Pretty much expecting it. It's just going to be interesting to see, do the Angels burn a guy where it's like, hey, Tim Anderson's going to make the roster for 2, 3 weeks, even though we're going to cut him once Neto's back, or do they just roll with what they have and Kevin Newman, Kyron Parrish, who's looked good early, or Luis Rengifo, like those type of guys? That's what I'm really curious to see is what kind of route they go, because I think if they burn it with like a Tim Anderson, that raises a little bit more red flags where I'm like, ooh, he might actually be hurt a little bit longer than the couple weeks that we're thinking. But if they're just going to ride with like a Kevin Newman, Luis Rengifo thing, it's like it'll be a couple weeks and he'll be back.
Jared?
it's kind of the Bryce Harper, Mike Trout situation with Zach Neto. Some guys, you just have to get used to playing 162 games and understand that you can't go. I know everybody wants players to go 100%, and Zach Neto seems like one of those guys that, and we had him on the show and just wants to go 100% all the time. And unfortunately, you can't do that for 162 games and not expect to get hurt. And that might be where it is with Zach Neto, where it's like, hey man, like, every once in a while, slow down. Like, I know you want to go get that ball in the hole or something like that, but it's not worth it. We're not going to get the guy out at first, or little things like that. Where Bryce Harper was like, "Hey man, you can't be running into walls all the time." Mike Trout, you can't be, doing all this stuff and think you're going to play 162 games every year. Because that's the kind of player that I think Zach Neto is like, I'm going to give my 100% all the time. Kind of like how Trout still is in a sense, running down first base hard every single time. And Bryce Harper even plays that way, where he's kind of he's just got that where he likes to be on the baseball field and loves the game. So yeah, I think Zach Neto probably should talk to Mike Trout a little bit and be like, hey man, like what do I need to do to, pump the brakes, but also still, play 100% all the time like you do. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. It's kind of a weird situation, but a lot of young guys have to, a lot of young players have to learn how to play 162 games. Oh, do we lose Derek? Dang, look at that. Just went straight into a, oh, there he is. He's back now. All right, there you go. Go ahead. Take it away, Derek. Whatever you got to do.
No, my question was: is you're gonna recommend talking to Mike Trout about
Yes.
an injury when he hasn't stayed
Yeah.
healthy for 6 years?
Yeah. I'll talk to Mike Trout about anything baseball
Pre
baseball
pre
related.
30.
Yeah, pre 30. I mean, what we were talking about him at the age of 9. I mean, it's very similar. Age of 19, like he was very healthy for a long time, and then body's been breaking down a little bit, but that's to be expected when you get to be that age.
All right. So there you go. Then a brief internet instability there, but time for us to get out of here. Follow us on X at Talking Halo at Talking Halos. Follow Jared at Jared_Tims and Nate at Nate Green 34. Until next time, we're out of here.